it appears Nebraska has their staff movement in place at this point. Glenn Thomas, who was the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks coach, has been a coordinator at Arizona State, worked with Matt Rule at Temple and Baylor. According to Mitch Sherman, our colleague and friend, he'll coach the quarterbacks for Nebraska next year. And this is a name that's been speculated for several weeks now, but the NFL season just ended yesterday for the Steelers. Glenn Thomas to coach quarterbacks, Marcus Satterfield to remain offensive coordinator, but now be the tight ends coach.
Right. And I think this is where you remind people that Rule's original plan, or his grand plan as he took that, as he became Nebraska's head coach, wasn't to have Satterfield coach the quarterbacks. It fell that way. Now he's made a change. And what I was saying, Sean, during the season and right after the season was Nebraska's turnover issues were extreme. And usually when something's extreme like that in a negative way, there should be changes, right? Or there often are changes. And here's a pretty big one. Bringing in Glenn Thomas, who has extensive college background and pro background. And it looks like now, Sean, we're talking about a dedicated quarterbacks coach, pretty much.
A dedicated quarterbacks coach, Glenn Thomas, with Marcus Satterfield remaining as the OC and now coaching tight ends. So, what happens there with the tight ends coach before? I mean, it was an interim situation.
Okay. Yeah, with
Josh Martin, who stepped in for Bob Wager. And look, I don't think the move with Josh Martin was ever meant to be a permanent move. It was, the tight ends coach got let go in August.
Right.
And Josh Martin stepped up in that role.
And did a good job.
And did a fine job for what he was at. And he may stay at Nebraska and still, with the new analyst rules that could go into effect later, not much could change for him.
Right. So this is Matt Rule identifying, it wasn't hard to identify the turnover issue. Nebraska, at the end of the regular season, led the country in turnovers. And most of those turnovers came from the quarterback position. So something had to be done, and he did it. Rule is showing a lot. He's very aggressive. He doesn't hang back. It was a problem. He addressed it. So we'll see how that works out now.
Right. And I don't think, with Dylan Raiola coming in, you don't want to mess this up.
No.
And you heard Jesse Sapolu. They had a quarterback competition on Monday, and he could effortlessly throw a football 75 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Jesse Sapolu off air said something really, really important, though, is now you just got to see if he can read. Jesse Sapolu and a lot of veteran football guys will tell you that the critical element, and Jesse Sapolu played with Joe Montana, and what did he say, Sean? Montana could dissect defenses. He could really read defenses well. He wasn't a spectacular athlete.
Talent.
Didn't have spectacular arm talent, but he could really read defenses. So we'll see that we'll just have to see with Dylan. My guess is he's fine that way, or maybe much better than fine. And then he'll be coached by Glenn Thomas. Pretty big breaking news here.
Glenn Thomas coaching the quarterbacks with Marcus Satterfield stepping in still in his role. And like you said, Marcus Satterfield, I don't think ever was intended to be the quarterback's coach, but Matt Rule had a lot of things on his plate when he came to Nebraska. He had to recruit, salvage the roster, bring in transfers as well, and hire an entire staff of people. So it's natural that you're going to see some movement, I think, after a year one like last year. And we've seen some support staff people move on as well, for Matt Rule. So year one is never meant to be the perfect setup. You use year one to learn what it's going to take down the road to win. And this is Matt Rule doing that right now.
Yeah. We'll see how it all works out. Not only for Dylan Raiola, but Daniel Kalen and Heinrich Harburg. Hey, Sean, we've seen it over and over at Nebraska. This isn't just the Dylan Raiola show. And by the way, I don't know if we can't really crown him yet, right?
No, he's got to prove it in practice. And, Heinrich Harburg has started several games at Nebraska. So he's
5-3.
He's a proven 8-game Big Ten starting quarterback that's, been under that role and Kalen's comp. But yeah, Raiola if all things break right, he's the guy.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
I don't think we disagree on that.
No, we absolutely agree. But what I'm suggesting is you better get those other guys ready to roll because of, I mean, it's how often does a guy make it through without getting banged up, you know? So yeah, this Glenn Thomas thing has been speculated. It's been widely
It's been out there for about 6 weeks, but
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he's with an NFL team, you finish your season out. Now that doesn't always the case. Like Donovan Raiola was able to leave the Bears early to join Scott Frost, but
Steelers are in the playoffs.
Donovan Raiola, the Bears head coach, had already been fired, if I'm not mistaken, back then, and he was the assistant O-line coach.
Mhm.
Glenn Thomas is the quarterbacks coach. So, you know, when you're an actual true position coach for a pro team, you have to, you know, the NFL is really strict about letting you out of those contracts.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. We'll delve into Glenn Thomas as the day and week goes on.